In this video, I'm going to be covering how to use formulas and functions in Excel. So we're going to start with using basic math formulas and then get into some more advanced stuff like how formulas work when you copy and paste them. And then we're going to be learning how to use functions in Excel. So if you are a beginner spreadsheet user and you want to get started doing some more advanced calculations in your spreadsheet, this is the video for you. Whether you are an Excel user or a Google Sheets user, this video is going to be relevant either way. So first, I'm going to cover basic math formulas in Excel. However, I have gone over this before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So there's two ways to do a basic math formula in Excel. You can either enter the number manually, or you can use a cell reference along with your math operator. So in this cell, if you want to do a math calculation here, you have to click on it and then type the equal sign on your keyboard. And then you enter the numbers that you want in your formula along with the math operator that you want. So if I want to add 10 to 10, I'm going to type 10 and then the plus symbol and then 10 and press enter, and the formula will calculate. So you can enter the numbers manually like that, or you can use cell references along with your formulas. So here I'm going to do equals, and then I'm going to select cell A1 plus A2. So those are two ways that you can do basic math formulas: entering the numbers manually inside a cell or selecting cell references to include. Now you can also do a combination of both. So if I want to do a cell A1 plus 10 by entering that number manually, that works too. So the basic math operators that you're going to use to do formulas in Excel, there's the plus symbol for addition, plus symbol for addition, there is the minus symbol for subtraction, there's the forward slash symbol if you want to do division, and then the asterisk symbol if you want to do multiplication. So these are the four basic math operators that you're going to end up using for most of your basic math formulas. Now there is also order precedence that you can set in Excel when you're doing formulas. So just to kind of illustrate what I mean by this, I'm going to set up this formula here. We're going to do A1 plus A2 divided by A3. And just so you can kind of see this formula, I'm going to paste it here. So the reason this equals 7 is because this is first taking A2 divided by A3 before adding A1 onto it. So A2 divided by A3, so 10 divided by 5 is 2, and then we're adding A1 onto it, 5, and so our total is 7. But if you want to change the precedence of this math equation, you have to use parentheses. So here I'm going to copy this exact formula, and this time I'm going to set this first part in parentheses, and this is going to change what it equals. So the reason this formula equals 3, but this one equals 7 is because this one has the parentheses here. So this is telling Excel, do this first before doing the division part. So A1 plus A2 is 15, and then we're dividing by cell A3. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. That is why this is 7 and this is 3. So if you want to change the precedence of a formula, you have to use parentheses. Now another thing that you need to understand when using formulas is how formulas move along with the cells as you paste them across rows or down columns. So what I'm going to do in this example is I'm going to have 5 and 5, and I'm just going to add these together, 5 plus 5. Now watch what happens when I paste this across one cell to the right. So instead of cell A1 plus B1, when I move one cell to the right, my formula, my cell references in this formula also move along with it. So for every cell to the right that I place this, the formula cell references are also going to move along one cell. It also works the same way when you paste down columns. So for every column that I've moved down, you can see the cell references that the formula is using have also moved down. So sometimes this is a good thing, and there's going to be a lot of times where you do want the cell references to move down or move across because it's going to allow you to quickly do math on a large set of data. However, there's also times where you want your cell references to stay in place. And how you would do this is by locking the cell reference in place or taking the absolute cell location, the absolute cell reference. So to do this, when you have a cell reference in your formula, what you can do is press F4 and you will see these dollar symbols. So the dollar symbol is going to lock this cell reference in place so that no matter where I am, this stays on cell A1. So now when I copy and paste this, let me just make sure I place that there. So F4, so this cell reference is locked in place, and then press enter. And then when I copy and paste this, now you can see that this second one, this B1 reference does move along with my formula. However, A1 is locked in place. Now you can also do that when you go down a column. So you can see cell A1 is locked in place even though the cell B reference moves. Now you can lock something in the row, column, or lock the specific cell reference. And that just depends where the dollar symbol is located. So if it's located before the A, we're going to stay in column A no matter which way I move. If it's located before the A and before the number, so before the column letter and the row number, then it's going to stay locked on the specific cell. However, if it's just before the row number, then it stays locked in the row. So if you are new and you've never played with cell references and locking cell references before, I recommend that you try this in your spreadsheet just so you can kind of get a feel for how this works, because this does come in handy when you become a regular spreadsheet user. So that is it for basic formulas and cell references. Now we are going to get into functions and learning how to read function syntax and use functions. So a function is something that you can use in Excel to do some more advanced calculations. And how you call functions is the same way you start a basic formula in Excel. You're going to click a cell, you're going to type the equals sign, and then you're going to type the function. So there are a ton of different functions, and I'm not going to go over too much about the different kinds of functions that you can use. What we're going to learn first is how to read function syntax. So when you call a function, so we'll start with the basic sum function, you will see that they have these parameters within parentheses, and sometimes they have brackets. So what this is a parameter is essentially an argument that you need in your function to use the function. So you'll see it written with a syntax like this. There might be a parameter 1, comma, parameter 2, comma, parameter 3. Sometimes you will also see a parameter inside brackets and 3 dots at the end. So when you see a parameter inside brackets, what that means is that parameter is optional, and when you see 3 dots at the end, that means you can continue on adding additional parameters into your function. So this is kind of complicated if you've never used functions before, but let me just show you with using a basic function how this syntax works and how to read it. So I'm going to use the COUNTIF function. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type some basic names here, and I'll show you how to use the COUNTIF function so we can get a better understanding of how syntax works. So here I have typed these different names, and you'll notice the name Matt is here twice. What I'm going to do is use the COUNTIF function. So let me just move this up so you can see. So I'm going to show you the syntax of the COUNTIF function first. So I'm typing COUNTIF and then pressing tab on my keyboard. So you can see at the top here there are 2 arguments of the COUNTIF function. There's range and there's criteria. So these are the 2 parameters, or you will also hear them called arguments, that are required if I'm going to use this function. Now, to use this function, you need to know what these actually stand for. And so if you click on any of these that you can click on, so maybe I want to click on count if, you can't see it on my screen, but a help section just opened up on the right hand side of my screen, and here it will explain what the syntax means. And so I'll just copy and paste what popped up on my screen so that you can see. So this is what it just showed in Excel's help explanation of how to use this function. So the syntax of COUNTIF is range and criteria. So there's range and criteria. So I'm just typing this out so you can see. And then when I have clicked onto the help link within the function, it explains the criteria. Where do you want to look and what do you want to look for? So the range is where do you want to look. The criteria is what do you want to look for. So what the COUNTIF function does, it also explains that in the help section, is it counts the number of cells that meet a criterion. So what it's going to do is it's going to count the number of times my criteria appears in the range. So if I want to do the formula here, equals COUNTIF. So this is my range, and I want to lock this range in place so that it stays looking in this range. So COUNTIF, and then my criteria, I'm going to have this cell. So we're going to look for the amount of times that Matt appears within this range. So you can see Matt appears 2 times. Now since I've locked this cell reference in place, when I copy and paste this down, now we're going to count the number of times that each of these other names appears within this range. So I know this is a little complex if you're new to using functions in Excel, but I just want you to understand that using a function, there are these parameters or arguments that you need to have to use the function. So we've used COUNTIF here, and the parameters are range and criteria. Then in the help section, there's an explanation of what range and criteria means. So range is where do you want to look. The criteria is what are you looking for. So range, I'm looking in this range, and what we're looking for is the value in this cell. And then what this function does is it counts the number of occurrences of the criteria in the range. And that is why this equals 2, because in this range the criteria occurs twice and everything else is 1. So that's just one example of a function. There is a ton of functions that can really be used for a ton of different things. So another more basic function that we can look at now is the sum function. So I'll just type some numbers here and we will use sum. So this is the criteria or the syntax of using the sum function. So the first parameter is number, and then there's an optional parameter which is number 2 inside brackets. Brackets means it's optional, and there's 3 dots, meaning you can continue on and put more parameters in your function if you want to. So the sum parameter 1 is number, and so in here I can put a range. And then I can calculate this, and that is using the sum function. But there is optional parameters, so you can continue on adding additional parameters into this function and it still works. So if I press enter, now it is summing all of this. That is the sum function. So if you want to learn to use functions, you kind of have to teach yourself or look up resources on how to use them. But what you do need to do is you do need to have an understanding of how the syntax works. And so that is what I wanted to cover in this video, and that will be all for this tutorial. So now we have covered using basic math formulas, setting order precedence, how copying and pasting formulas works when you're moving across rows or down columns, and we've gotten our feet wet using functions and learning function syntax. So this is a good foundation, and now you can really start to use Excel for a lot of different things once you get comfortable with all of this. So that's it for this video. As always, if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching the video. If you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions or content suggestions, just let me know in the comments and I'll try my best to answer everyone.